Hello, my name is John Brink, and we are on the Brink in beautiful Prince George, British Columbia. I always call it the capital of Northern British Columbia, an amazing place. And I know we have people watching from all over the world. You must visit British Columbia. But once you visit British Columbia, Vancouver is nice, Victoria is nice, but the beauty of British Columbia is Northern British Columbia. So come to see us. What the hell?
Wow.
What happened?
Earthquake?
That was an earthquake, guys.
Is that actually an earthquake?
Take a look.
That the whole building is shaking.
That is something else.
That was serious. That was serious.
Unreal.
Wow.
Something happened, guys.
So now we've had a sneeze and an earthquake.
And an earthquake.
Is the earthquake on there?
Oh, it's still recording, yeah?
Yeah, okay. So leave it in there, because in all the time I've lived here since 1965, we had a little earthquake in the mid-80s, and they said, did you feel it? I did not feel it. This shook the whole bloody building.
Yeah.
This is a big, big building.
Huh.
Did you feel it?
Oh yeah.
The whole building went like this. You know, I cannot believe it. Wow. So it's going to be all over the place. Okay. So what did I say last?
I
said
don't know.
me, right? So and then we're on the Brink in beautiful Northern British Columbia. Sometimes we have earthquakes, apparently. Not very often, though. I don't scare anybody. I have an extremely interesting guest today, and her name is Alison Hoskins.
Yes, Hoskins.
I'm still a little bit shook up from there.
Yeah, no, totally.
Alison, yeah, you felt the earthquake too, right?
Yeah, I think the one you were talking about the last time, I was driving speed bumps across Spruce Land in the mid-80s, that big one, and I didn't feel that one, but everybody came running.
But never like this,
never
though.
Like
the
that.
whole building shook.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So we'll hear it all on the news, and we hear it on our podcast. So can you believe it? So I was on the verge of introducing you. And for that, the whole building shook when they heard it was going to be you.
Oh, well, I guess we'll make a little rumble today.
Anyway, Alison, so tell us a little bit about you. You were born in Prince George, I believe, and and you've been pretty much always part of Prince George, save and except for your education. So tell me and us, my guest, a little bit about you and your background.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I often, when kind of asked to share my story, even through my role at Integris, I say I'm so incredibly fortunate to be able to, be a CEO in an organization like Integris in my own hometown. So I was born and raised in Prince George. As a very young toddler, spent a couple of years in Ontario, but we kind of started here, left, came back again, and consider myself to be kind of a homegrown, from here kind of gal.
Well, your whole career is based here, and most of your life has been here, or pretty well all of it, right?
Oh, pretty well, yeah.
And then, so you got your education here and did high school here probably, and then you went to SFU, and you studied there, and you started business. Did you start, was that the whole idea? That's what you wanted to do, or?
Yeah, it's a bit of a funny story in the sense, I started off here at the local college. So I did take university transfer at CNC for a year and a half.
Yeah.
And then I went down to Vancouver with my eyes set on being an accountant. And I took my first semester there and found myself in these massive theaters with hundreds and hundreds of students in these entry-level accounting courses, and kind of rethought...
SFU, right?
SFU, yeah. And I kind of rethought my career choice for a couple of years.
Yeah.
I also took some organizational behavior courses and was really drawn to the human resource field.
So why that particular course in human organizational?
Yeah, I found when I was at university, I was just kind of really drawn into kind of the theory behind organizations, the attention on the people focus, and sort of less so on the technical courses that were part of the accounting degree. So I did switch and got most of the way, well, to my very last semester with an organizational behavior concentration.
Right.
And I came back to Prince George.
Then you got a BBA, right?
Yeah, just about. I was in the co-op program.
Okay.
And I took a full year off doing kind of back-to-back co-op positions.
Okay.
Before I went back to my last semester. And I found myself working, actually, I date myself a little bit, but in the human resources department at Northwood.
Okay.
At the time, and I did 8 months there, and I
Northwood
really
is a lumber
enjoyed
company.
it.
Was a lumber company in town here, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And I really enjoyed it. But when I went to do my last semester of school, all the courses I needed to graduate were at the same time. And so I fell into a 4-month job at Deloitte here in the accounting field. And they offered me a full-time position as an articling student when I finished. So I had to quickly make up my mind if I wanted to be an accountant or if I wanted to be in HR. And they offered to pay my tuition for my last semester. And as any broke student, you're kind of highly motivated by somebody else wanting to pay your tuition. So I, on a whim, decided I'd go back to the accounting field. And I found it to be quite an opportunistic field. I've really enjoyed the career that it's allowed me to build. I worked 10 years in public practice before I came into finance. At Integris, and yeah, it sort of started being my career choice. I moved away from it and fell back into it, and it turned out to be a good thing.
So just to kind of look at it then, so you got your BBA from SRU, which means what? Business?
Yeah, Bachelor of Business Administration.
Administration. So that then set you up for. Then when you came back to Prince George, you got, you became an articling student with Deloitte Touche, a national accounting firm.
Yes, yeah.
And then you started working on your CA.
I did, yeah.
And what does CA stand for? Is that CPA, CA, or what is it?
Yeah, so CA is sort of the legacy, it's chartered accountancy.
Right.
It's the legacy of CPA.
Right.
So CPA was an amalgamation between the certified management accountants and the chartered accountants.
Right.
To create sort of these new initials.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you did that, and then from there on in, you were at Deloitte Touche, and then you had to make a decision what direction you want to go, you said. And then, so where did you go from there?
Yeah, so I came actually straight from Deloitte. I had done both my taxation in-depth as well as quite a bit of work in the audit field. And about kind of the time when my youngest child was born, and you know, as a new mom, I have 2 boys. Yeah, I have 2 boys.
How old are they?
My eldest boy is going to be 21 this year.
How old? How about his name?
And his name is Zachary.
Zachary.
Yeah.
Nice. And the younger one?
And my younger boy Jacob just graduated from high school this year.
Say again?
Just graduated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they are kind of growing up fast, you know. So
they sure are.
What's his youngest one's name?
Jacob.
Jacob?
Yeah.
Jacob. Jacob.
Jacob. Jacob.
Yeah, it sounds Dutch to me. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. So about the time I was going back to work after my maternity leave with Jacob, Integris was kind of being formed. There had been an amalgamation of credit unions in the north, and they had this new position of controller.
So so that was the savings union. What was it called again?
Yeah, Prince George Savings.
And
Yep.
which is a credit union.
Yep.
And then Integris already was in a combination of other ones, right? Or was it?
Yeah, Integris was formed when Prince George and Savings and Quinellen District and Nechaco Valley Credit Union in the West all came together and formed Integris Credit Union through an amalgamation.
That happened in the 90s or something?
That happened actually in 2003.
Oh, early in 2000. Yeah. And so then when they again amalgamated to make it one large organization, there was an opportunity for you to come on board.
Yeah, yeah.
As
the controller.
As a controller.
Yeah, bringing my kind of accounting background into this new organization.
Bit of a new world for you, right, then?
It was a very new world. You know, that transition from, you know, loans are not liabilities, they're assets now.
Exactly. Exactly.
Super confusing.
Exactly. Exactly. So you did that, and then from there on in, you started to move through the corporate world of the Integris, and one from being CFO, if you wish, a Chief Financial Officer, to a VP of something,
Yeah.
to now you run the place, you're the CEO.
That's what they tell me, yeah.
Yeah. So, interesting career, but it sounds to me that your foundation was very appropriate for the position, because a lot of the CEO jobs are relating to HR or human relationships. Pretty much all of it does, right? Even your clientele. Yeah, human relationships are critically important.
Yeah, it's a really good opportunity to blend kind of that people interest and, you know, my university education background in people with the finance side of, you know, the skills that my CPA brings, for sure. But I would say, you know, even more so, we lean heavily on people at this point.
Yeah. Now, people would ask, credit unions, are they banks? Or what is the difference between them? They lend money to people, companies, people, whatever, and then so do banks. What's the difference between the one and the other, if any?
The biggest difference lies in its structure. So credit unions essentially are a cooperative. So as a member of a credit union, you're also an owner of the credit union. You have an opportunity to vote in the running of the credit union. We have a board of directors that's elected out of our membership. So as a member of the credit union, should you feel so inclined, you could have the opportunity to run for and serve on our board, where our board is integral in forming the strategy of how we operate.
Elected by the membership.
Elected by the membership, yeah.
How often?
So our
or do they partially? Sometimes what they do, they don't want to have the whole board leave all at once.
Yeah, so that's exactly how we're structured. Okay. So we kind of have a third and a third and a third terms come up in any given year. So, you know, in every year there's an opportunity for people to come forward. We're actually just sort of beginning the cycle now of kind of an election and nomination period for our board. So I would say, you know, that is the primary difference, is we're member owned. As a member, you can participate in how the credit union is structured and run. And then the other big thing is that, you know, the majority of credit unions are really founded in that idea of local community. Right. And so at Integris, we're one of those. So, you know, profits from the credit union come back and feed local community, where I would, you know, let's say at the big banks, you know, profits go back to shareholders who may or may not be account holders. They go back to, you know, pretty beefy executive compensations, which very rarely has any role to play in, you know, our small communities. And so I think, you know, I liken the credit union to that shop local phenomenon of financial institutions. Right.
So why would somebody want to be a member of a credit union, or why would they do their banking at a credit union versus, for lack of a better word, a regular bank as we know it?
Yeah, so there's lots of reasons. You know, a lot of people choose to bank with a credit union because they like to make values-based decisions. And so if really supporting the community is something that ties close home to your values. You know, that may be one reason why you sort of feel aligned. You know, many of us think fairly carefully about how we spend our money, you know, which organizations we wanted to support with our dollars as we spend them. You know, we like to encourage people to think carefully about also where you keep your money, because where you keep your money can also make a big difference. You know, there's other reasons. You know, here in Prince George, we are the only local full-service financial institution, and in many of our locations. And so we're the only place where you can come and do your insurance business, whether that's you need ICBC insurance for your vehicle or your recreation vehicle, whether you need, you know, a life insurance policy, whether you need some business for your commercial enterprise.
Scale of it?
We have the full scale of insurance services. We have a full scale wealth division. So any of your financial planning needs, wealth needs, estate planning, all happens in-house, and your banking. And so, you know, there's no chartered banks where you can do all three of those things when you walk in one single door. So that's a real advantage, that convenience thing.
And your clients are mainly individuals, or does it involve corporations?
Yeah, we have both. So we have a very large kind of personal, individual retail portfolio, retail membership. We also have, you know, quite a large small business membership. And then, you know, we even service many of our larger commercial members. And we have the ability as credit unions, although each credit union is completely independent from another credit union, the system is incredibly collaborative. Right. And so if our commercial members maybe outgrow, you know, the capacity of what we can do, we can often work together. We'll find other credit unions to collaborate. So if there's large commercial lending deals, we can work with other credit unions in order to meet some of our commercial needs. So that's, you know, another difference, I think, from banks, where, you know, typically they're quite competitive within and amongst each other. Yeah. The credit union system can even be quite collaborative within and amongst each other.
Do you collaborate with regular banks?
Not typically. Yeah. You know, banks have a pretty deep capital pocket and don't often need the support of the credit union system. Yeah.
And then, is there a limit to it? Just for our guests that are looking out working, and say they have this small company, hypothetically speaking, that started out with a few employees and all of a sudden immensely successful, say, and now it becomes a big company. But at what point do you say, a little bit bigger than we usually like to deal with?
Yeah, so we do have to be a little bit careful with the total amount of deposits that we hold for any given member. So, you know, we don't have a particular number that fluctuates depending on kind of, you know, quite a number of factors. So I wouldn't want to say if you have X amount of dollars, you're too big for us. But, you know, it's certainly a conversation we love to have. We have some really fantastic commercial resource on our commercial team. So, you know, we can service the financial needs in a way that we believe adds value from an expertise perspective for quite large clients, quite large members.
So what would you view your region in northern BC? Because you kind of accumulate.
Yeah, so we've essentially defined our core service area as North Central British Columbia. We have a branch in Clinton, and then our next most southern branch is Quesnel. We're fairly respectful of the territory in between as being a territory that is covered by our friends at Williams Lake and District Credit Union. Right. And then our region, so we do service in and around kind of the Clinton Crash Creek area, within and around, you know, Quesnel, Wells, Barkerville, then Prince George west to Fraser Lake. Yeah. Kind of northwest up to Fort St. James, and then east, you know, we kind of consider we cover off that region right out sort of to the McBride, Valemont. We would consider that
Right.
within our service region, although we don't actually have a branch east of Prince George.
Oh, but still.
But we would still consider that kind of our geographic
and then going
region.
west.
Yeah, and then going west out towards Fraser Lake.
Fraser Lake, and then there are other credit unions in Smithers Terrace.
Yeah. Our friends at Bulkley Valley and District are
Yeah.
kind of west beyond Fraser Lake. They kind of pick up in Burns Lake and over.
Yeah. So, still poised for growth?
Absolutely. You know, I think COVID has, in the face of the challenges that it has brought us, it's also been a real leverage point for digital transformation in just about any industry area. And, I would say probably financial services, maybe even quicker than others. And,
Right.
So of course it takes a certain scale in order to be able to, meet that digital demand and kind of that base. I would say that the average consumer, no matter what you're trying to do, sort of their minimum expectations from a digital perspective have rapidly accelerated. And so, growth certainly allows us to continue to meet those needs and make the investments that we need to make in the technology side. And there's a lot of potential in our region.
Yeah. And kind of looking at your buildings and your offices, you've steadily increased your footprint on Victoria and 6th, I think somewhere around there. And, so you're definitely growing from that perspective. But interesting. So if you now kind of look at, obviously we are entering into a bit of a challenging period in the world economy, and then we in North America are not separated from it. We saw the U.S. prime rate go up by 750 basis points today, and the same has happened in Canada, with the purposes of slowing down the economy, because I forget what Canada is, about 8% inflation rate or somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So they like to have it around 2-3%, 4% maybe maximum.
Yeah, I think
so
the target is average of 3.
So are they trying to cool it off, or what are they doing?
Yeah, they're really trying to use an increase in interest rates to kind of encourage the consumers to back off. And, I think this most recent interest rate hike did demonstrate that, we've kind of hit the point where it's starting to have an effect.
Canada, you're talking Canada or North America?
Canada.
Yeah.
And so I think we'll see, we do speculate that we'll see probably one more increase before the year is out.
Yeah.
And, we're certainly seeing it in our market here in Prince George. We're seeing housing sales kind of back off a little bit.
Yeah.
We're seeing, kind of the mortgages not close as quickly. We saw a lot of consumers kind of amping themselves up and preparing for rising interest rates by doing a lot of sort of consolidation of some, variable rate lending, higher interest borrowings, using the equity that has accumulated in homes as a result of increases in home prices as a way of leveraging less expensive debt, leading into this period. And we're seeing things definitely soften a little.
So now what happens, say hypothetically speaking, I'm a consumer in the marketplace, and I have a young family, and we're thinking about buying a house, but the prices have gone up to, where it used to be 10, 15 years ago, $300,000 was a big house. My God, are you kidding me? So it used to be 150, 200,000, 250 maybe for 3-bedroom home, full basement. Now it's approaching $800,000-900,000, even getting close to $1 million. And then interest rates, mortgage rates were at 2.5%, 3%. Now they're double.
Yeah.
And then it becomes, then to cool it off again, to get a mortgage, it's harder now, because they will require more of a down payment. They will require, stronger financials so we can service the debt, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what if you kind of look at it from a potential consumer perspective now, how do you see it at this particular moment?
I think for, the average first-time home buyer, young family, this certainly is posing some real challenges for people. In order to meet sort of the minimum debt servicing requirements, in order to get, CMHC insurance, which typically first-time home buyers and new home buyers are looking to get, the average base salary you need to qualify as prices have increased and interest rates are increasing is climbing. And so we are seeing that a lot of young families are priced out of this market right now. I do hope that from an inflationary perspective that the end results, are meaningful so that, our market, I think we have to all put it into perspective because our market generally is quite affordable if you look at BC as a whole. So what we're seeing kind of in, our region isn't nearly as pervasive as what's happening in the Lower Mainland and even in the Okanagan, the Kootenays, where prices are that much higher. Yeah. So I think, for us, if we want to think about, our communities and the attractiveness of people coming to our communities, there's almost never been a better time. But yet for families that have always grown up in these communities and have this expectation of things being able to be affordable, that sort of affordable metric has definitely climbed. I think the other big thing that is happening is that, and it's been happening for a while, but you see it even more impactful, is, owning real estate used to be about having a home. It used to be about, creating that place for your family to be. Real estate now is being perceived so much as an integral part of people's investment portfolios. And that's having a huge, huge impact on affordability of homes for families. So I think, there's ways in which, how we move forward and how we kind of support families to be able to purchase homes is going to be so much more important. You asked earlier about kind of why credit unions, what's the difference between credit unions and banks? And, there's two things that can protect families where credit unions, I think, have a leg up on banks, and one being on the deposit side. So, credit unions have the privilege of offering 100% deposit guarantees. So banks, you're limited to 100,000, people kind of spread around.
If something fails,
you have 100% on no minimums, no maximums.
Credit union, a bank, you don't have that. It's limited to whatever the bank may have set it to be. So that from a risk perspective is worrisome. But that would only happen if the bank goes under.
Only happen. So, I mean, the likelihood
how often did the bank go under in Canada?
Well, in Canada, not in my career.
I know, but I know at least twice. And the reason that I say, because I was party to one, the one was the Home Bank and the 40s, 30s in that area, and the other one was Northland Bank out of Calgary, and they had a branch here in Prince George. And we, as a small company, they had a lot of our operating and our capital, our lending, for capital assets as well as operating facilities. And it's a different feeling if a bank goes under, and that went under quick. And overnight, we didn't have any more access to our capital and not our operating facility. So there was quite an experience. So I just want to add that this has happened, and we never expected, but it did. And that was probably in 80s, mid 80s, early 90s. But I still remember it like yesterday, actually.
Those things tend to take a sting. Forget them quickly. So on the one side, that's the deposits. On the other side, credit unions. For those people who have sort of been in the market for a mortgage lately, banks are required to stress test mortgage rates. So when you qualify and they calculate your minimum TDS and GDS, they have to stress test the rate so that
Let's
they not just...
Let's talk about it for a little bit.
Yep.
It's saying stress rating, and that they look at your assets, your liabilities, your commitments, your earning ability, and then on the basis of that, then they calculate it. That's why they call it stress testing. And now, obviously, what has happened, that has become tighter and tighter. So how does that compare to from a bank to the credit union?
Yeah, so it's very much what you say, but in a stress test environment, they'll take, can you afford your payments today? Not only can you afford your payments today, so if you're going in and the interest rate that you're being offered is 5%, let's say, they'll calculate everything. Can you afford your payments at a 5% interest rate? But can you also afford your payments if the interest rate is, say, 8%? And if you can't afford the stress test payment, the banks aren't allowed to qualify you for your loan.
They're not allowed to.
They're not allowed by regulation.
It's not a choice. They're simply not allowed to.
Yeah, and
by
credit unions aren't under that same obligation.
Right.
Of course, our regulator wants to make sure that we're aware of the risks.
Yeah,
so, we do stress test them.
Yeah.
We're careful to make the right decisions,
Yeah.
but we can, if we choose, make an exception. However, we want to be careful that we're not setting people up for failure. It's really important that we're not granting credit to people who we don't think are going to be able to afford it.
But you are no different than a bank in the sense that every loan that you have is not only the loan officer that writes the loan and the management that approves the loan, but it has to go through risk approval as well, just making sure that it meets all the commitments of the credit union. No different than a bank, but the stress in the bank is different.
Yeah, yes and no. That's another way in which I think we do differentiate. Our lenders at the credit union are different than lenders at the bank in that our lenders have limits. And so our lenders can make decisions for our members, where at the banks, typically, that's exactly what you're saying. There is sort of that back end adjudication process that happens. So, lenders in a bank environment are typically taking care of the relationship with their member. They're collecting the information that they need. They're helping members to fill out the forms. But the ultimate decision as to whether that individual gets credit or not is made elsewhere. It's often made in Toronto. It's often made at corporate office,
right,
where here at the credit union, our lenders are able to make those decisions on the spot.
On a local level.
So, we can take things into consideration, big picture. Sometimes we have the ability to be a bit more innovative.
Yeah.
We can take the people into consideration a little bit more frequently.
You have to be a member to apply for a loan, a mortgage. So a person that is watching now, is it required to be being regional within your circle, or does it include if somebody's sitting in Vancouver and saying, well, I'm going to apply in Prince George for a mortgage and my house in Vancouver?
Yeah, so that's, when I describe sort of what we would consider to be our geographic region, we typically like to lend in our geographic region for a couple of reasons. We stand behind, that difference of, we are a community-based credit union, and when we take our depositors' dollars and tell our depositors we're reinvesting in your community, we want to reinvest in our community.
Exactly.
So, we want to be able to grant credit back to the people that live in our community and not send all of our dollars out of the community.
That makes sense, right?
And it also helps us to manage risk as well. We've got a pretty good sense about the risks within our region. We know our communities, we know our neighborhoods, we know, you can drive by and see that,
so for the people that
are
are kind of watching us from the region, and we get a lot of people watching, up to 40,000 people an episode. Can you believe it?
Wow.
And I believe it's important for our people that are watching to understand that, because the way I understand it in our dialogue is that being a member of a credit union may offer all kinds of benefits. So it doesn't eliminate, it doesn't mean you have to put all your banking there, but just become a member. And then once you're a member, then there may be opportunities for whatever you do that way you can become involved with the credit union.
Yeah, and it's a pretty easy process to be a member. You do have to buy shares. It's $5. Cheaper than Starbucks coffee. As an individual, as a business, we require $25 share investment. And it's no more difficult than opening up a bank account anywhere.
Very straightforward.
Yeah.
You offer credit cards and
we do.
Debit cards.
Yeah.
All those things.
All the things.
Plus all the insurance.
All the things and the insurance too. Yeah.
Interesting. So just want to kind of go further now. Obviously, it's interesting for you and me sitting here because we are so aware of the big R. Will there be a recession? Will there not be a recession? What is a recession? I think, correct me if I'm wrong, a recession is 3 negative quarters of growth or lack of growth. Technically, it would be called a recession. But on the other hand, there are some strange factors here that what you would expect if you're approaching a recession, unemployment rates are going up, but they're not. We for all intents and purposes, at 3.5% or whatever it is, we have full employment. It is not possible to go virtually beyond that, and we find that on a daily basis in our company. And then the other thing that we find is a lot of people, and we all speculate to that, post-COVID, have taken a whole different approach to working, and even more importantly, to not working. So for us in our operation, we employ about 400 people, but in some of our operations are front of the shifts. Here in Prince George, we have an operation in Vanderhoof and in Houston. There may be 60 people on the shift, and 10 or 15 don't show up.
Yeah, I feel like we could probably spend about 4 episodes talking about this, but you started kind of talking about that potential for recession, but yet we've got all of these other factors, and we are in just a really unusual time. And I think we've seen in the last 18 months, nationwide, like globally, more people turn over their jobs looking for something else. I think this post-COVID fatigue is real. People are tired. They're, those people that did have to kind of work in the front lines during COVID, and our organization is no different. Financial services was an essential service through COVID, and our members needed access to their money, and 50% of the demographics in our membership don't have online banking. They either choose not to. Technology, access to internet, in some of our smaller communities can be unreliable. And, there's also this sort of learning curve that comes with it. So you've got, these people that had to work frontline, they had potentially fears for their own personal health, had stuff happening in their families, stress levels. You talk about the sick time, I think I read a recent article that, in even recruiting efforts, for the first time in many HR professionals' careers, there's no shows to job interviews. Like, that was unheard of before. But yet, we're potentially on the face of a recession. There's supposed to be this spike in unemployment, but yet, I think we have 15 vacant positions at our organization right now.
So do we.
And we would love to fill them.
And so do we.
It's, our staff are like, we
want
need
to
help.
double the size of our operations, but we can't. And then the other part about it is, I'm talking to you about it because you're somewhat of an expert in it because you got your training. And I'm just giving you a hard time. So no, I'm just being funny. But you and me kind of looking at it and saying that, we have a place in Victoria in North Sand, and so usually on Fridays I go there, come back on Sundays. here to Prince George, and you know, it's not uncommon. In fact, it's uncommon now if the plane is on time. So when I left, I think Sunday afternoon, was already 3/4 of an hour late. Then we board the plane, then we sit on the runway, and they said, okay, Vancouver doesn't want to release them, ATC, air traffic control, for 20 minutes because they got flow control problems. The reason that they had flow control problems because they were short on air traffic controls. So it goes right to the economy. We're trying to get rail cars here to put our product on the rail cars to ship it mainly to southern United States. Can't get any rail cars. Why? Mainly related to no people available. And so there we are working towards the big R, the recession, full employment. The other thing that's supposed to happen as we approach the recession, gas prices have come down. That was a bit of a racket anyway, in my opinion, but that then being said, but grocery cost is up. Then, you know, but it's slowly coming down. But so the traditional indicators that we are used to, I think I've had my company for 47 years. I think I've seen 7 recessions for all different durations. It's just like a roller coaster. And then 2007 to 2009, recession, edging on depression, you know, and that sort of a thing. So it then, you know, kind of makes you wonder. And then it brings me back to northern BC. If I think about COVID, you know, which was quite an experience for all of us for 2 years, and was devastating to a lot of people. And then kind of looking at Vancouver, I spent a fair amount of time in Vancouver. We have an office there as well. And then, you know, people sitting in a car for an hour and a half to get to work, and then going back, and it's going deeper and deeper into the Fraser Canyon in terms of affordability, what you were talking about, then, and that, or sit in apartment buildings with God knows how many doors in the apartment building and how many people all kind of squeezed together. The more I look at northern BC, this comes back to what you were saying, is that affordability, I still believe that there is no better place to invest than here in northern BC. And that applies to, from a health perspective, from an opportunity perspective in terms of educations. We have the highest rated small university in Canada already for several years in a row, UNBC. We got the College of New Caledonia. We got, if you look behind me, a brand new pool sitting here. And the infrastructure in the city is second to none, better all the time. And, you know, and then all around us, we got thousands of lakes within a short distance. On the weekend, I saw 2 black bears, I saw a moose, I saw deers, I saw, you know, wildlife all around us, and we're living in harmony with them most of the times. And there is no better place to, you know, for enjoying the rivers, the lakes, or if you like to bike or cross bike or walk the West Coast Trail. We're going to talk about that because you did that, you know. So there's no better place like it. And I know you're an outdoors individual. We'll talk about that too in a minute. But you know, but what I'm saying is that then if I look at northern British Columbia, you know, and in particular Prince George, who is the capital of northern British Columbia, and it really took on the leadership role during the fires of 18 and 19. Where it took the leadership role for all the communities coming together. You know, it kind of changed, you know, who we are. And you know, and now looking forward, it's virtually untouched still in terms of opportunity. If I look at the crossroads, the roads, the air, the rail, you know, the infrastructure in terms of companies exploring for investments and a number of different areas, mining, it may be logistics, it may be warehousing, it may be lumber, it may be, there is so much opportunity here, and it's just here on the verge of, in my opinion, really exploding as we go forward in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And Prince George is still very, very much a location of choice, in my opinion, after the last 5 years and all the things that are going on around the world.
Yeah, I think, you know, I truly believe in the resilience of the North here. And I think, you know, to kind of provide examples, and I know you know this just as well, is, you know, Prince George is full of people who came here for only 3 to 5 years and never left. Exactly. I think that's the majority of people's story when you kind of meet people who have been here for perceptively forever. Is, you know, oh, we came for 3 years for this and never left. We came for 5 years. Because I think once you get here, the North really draws you in. I think you're persistent, you stick through that first year, you find your niche in the community, you find your lifestyle, and it's pretty tough not to get drawn in forever.
I agree. In 1965, July 65, when I came here, the common questions close to George Street, you know, was a rough place. There were lots of bars and lots of all of that kind of stuff. It was a boom town, and the common conversation was, when did you get here and when are you leaving? Yeah, it was just a place to make money and get the hell out of here, right? So the you know, that sort of a thing. Be bluntly about, you know. So the so that being said, then as you now kind of look forward, the economy looks strong. Considering, you know, I believe that we will have, my opinion, a soft landing, you know, until some of the things settle out. I don't think it'd be a deep recession. That means hopefully by next summer things will ease up a bit. Maybe interest rates will kind of moderate a bit. But compared to some of the periods that we have, it's still not bad. There's still opportunities. Getting used to paying a 6% mortgage versus 2.5 or 3 is something that somebody has to get used to, but still doable here. There's still lots of underlying value in a home and an asset.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, the other thing I want to talk to you about, you do a lot of stuff in the community.
I certainly have over time, and you know, it's something that I really like to make space for, and you know, I think it takes everybody to make a community a great place to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So what in particular, where are you active right now? I know there were a number of things that you have been involved in. You still are involved in some of the areas.
Yeah, so right now I'm serving on the board for NDIT.
Yeah. NDIT is?
NDIT, Northern Development Initiative Trust. So I've just actually started my second 3-year term for that.
Yeah.
You know, I find that organization and sort of the economic development work that it does right across, actually I find the northern part of it is a bit misleading because our footprint is quite a significant proportion of the province. But yeah, the work that's done there and the impact that is had across community is quite rewarding. I was on the board for the Canada Winter Games. So yeah. When Prince George hosted Canada Winter Games,
immense success.
That was a huge, and you know, you talk a little bit about, you know, the role that Prince George played as a hub during the fires in kind of 2019 as being a big turning point for Prince George. I think the 2015 Canada Winter Games were a real turning point, I think, for Prince George as well. You saw sort of the pride of the city really switch. I don't know if you kind of felt that. I felt yeah. I think you could feel feel that switch. You know, tonight I'm going and supporting an organization that's quite kind of dear to me, which is Cassie and Friends. There's like sort of a family evening being put on for families in the north that kind of have a support network for each other around juvenile arthritis. And so that's something that...
Around what?
Juvenile arthritis.
Okay.
So childhood autoimmune disease.
Yeah.
And, you know, over the years, I've been, you know, more involved and less involved. And,
right.
you know, I'm a little bit less involved at this point. However, this is a really great opportunity to kind of support families on their journey with their children.
Yeah.
I was quite active. I shared my younger son, Jacob, is 18, so just graduated from high school. So we're just kind of finding our feet as we come out of the chaos years of being involved in every kind of sport you could think. And that takes up a lot of time as a parent who kind of wants to be there and support those endeavors. And I find...
You've been quite involved in soccer and all those kind of things all around that, right? Mainly around the kids.
When Jacob was younger, I did do a lot of kind of supportive soccer coach. I think when he was about 12, I stopped coaching soccer because when the kids are a much better soccer player than the mom, it's time for the mom to not be the coach anymore.
Amazing sport for the kids. And we have such amazing fields here and the infrastructure for sports.
Yeah.
Now, you are an athlete as well. So tell us, tell me a bit about that, because you do cross biking and you do walking and...
Yeah, I'm not sure if I would call myself an athlete or not, but I love to like work hard and play hard, and you know, I guess certainly my interests lie more on the active side of things. We have a similar much in my history, but I started up very involved in equestrian, actually. I was a pony club kid, 3-day eventing, jumping, dressage. I joke that when Dad stopped paying the bills for that, I had to find my new sources of adrenaline. But
very expensive sport. Yeah,
I'm quite active. We spend the winter kind of enjoying the local ski hills. We have a place at Powder King, and we really enjoy kind of getting into the mountains most weekends. And then in the summertime, I'm a pretty avid mountain biker, and we spend a lot of time on the trails, kind of both within Prince George and outside. We've got some fantastic kind of trail development networks in our region, Valemont, Burns Lake. We were in Clearwater a couple weekends ago. They have a fantastic little network. And
amazing.
But here in Prince George, the trails are really awesome.
So when did you do the walk on the West Coast? There was 90 kilometers or something, right? That's a long one. So it starts at, you can start it either way?
Yeah, so we started at Bamfield.
Our international people, because BC is such an amazing province and country, you know, from, you know, the beauty, and it's just amazing. You know?
It really is. So the West Coast Trail has been a bucket list kind of goal of mine for a long, long time. And this year I turned 50. And so with any good milestone birthday, you need to make sure you remind yourself that your body can still do hard things. That was my motivation. And so some girlfriends and I decided that this would be the year we put the West Coast Trail, kind of took it off the bucket list and put it on the actual list. So we did from Bamfield to Port Renfrew. So we went from the north end of the trail to the south end of the trail. Because our research told us that's the easier way to do it. You get some of the flatter, the flatter, easier hiking while your backpack's still full of food. Eat your way through your backpack, and by the time you get to the techie hard climbing elevation changes of the end, your backpack's a little bit lighter. And you know, we were so fortunate to have fantastic weather that I think, you know, that easy part wasn't as much. Yeah, we took our time. We spread it out over 6 nights, 7 days. Some days were much longer than others, and I found for me that just kind of the environment that you're in you didn't have time to think about whether it was hard or long, or like you say, BC is a beautiful province, and the views and just being by the ocean and the beach trails and even the forests, like the open cedar forests were beautiful even when you were kind of inland away from the beaches for the days. And yeah, it was pretty fantastic. Yeah,
you see, you volunteered it yourself. You said you turned 50 and that's when you wanted to do that. Is that, to keep your body and your mind active is so important at any age. And, so I'm going to turn 82 on November the 1st. I'm apparently the oldest competitive bodybuilder in North America. I'm competing again. I think it's November the 14th.
Oh, good for you.
For the Arnolds in BC to then allow me to compete in the Nationals as well as the Arnolds.
Oh, fantastic.
Age is just a number.
Age is just a number, yeah.
And to stay physically active and mentally involved is critically important, and then everything is possible, and you are the example of that, so am I,
Yeah, excellent. I also think it's super important as a leader to kind of set a pretty good example of downtime. Like, I think that there's a bit of this, busy stamp that, sometimes we run ourselves on busy all the time as it being a badge, and I think it's so important to make sure that you carve downtime and plan for downtime and recharge, like ways in which you can recharge and bring yourself back energized.
And probably be more effective if you do,
Yeah.
Now the other thing that I did is, I wrote a book, Against All Odds. And I always say it took me 80 years to live it, 20 years to think about it, 2 years to write it. I don't know if you've seen it or not.
You know what? I have heard about the book. I haven't.
I'm going to get you a copy of it because I got it right here.
Oh, okay.
And I'm going to sign it for you.
Oh, well, thank you.
And then I did another one on this one, and this one came out about 2 months ago, I think, and. Less than 2 months ago, ADHD Unlocked. Now, you're familiar with ADHD?
Yeah, I sure am.
I call it the superpower. I'm a classic example of ADHD. I didn't know until I was about 57. And then I talked to my doc about it when I was 62. And, and then I've been more vocal about it. I failed grade 3. Nobody fails grade 3. I failed grade 7 3 times. And then they said, what we're going to do with this guy? Send him to mentally challenged school, or do we get him a job? Maybe make him a furniture maker. So I became a furniture maker. And then I had this dream of going to Canada because we were liberated in 1944-5 by the Canadians. It had made such an impression on me. And then my dad worked in the lumber industry, and that's what I wanted to do. And then I kind of felt I had failed, because of this, but I didn't know what was underlying it. And I wanted to start right from the ground up, and I thought I could do it. I wanted to build a mill. So when I arrived here in Prince George in July of 1975, at the old Greyhound station just up the street here, I came off the bus. I couldn't speak the language, didn't know a soul, didn't have a job. I had one suitcase, 2 books, 1 set of clothes, and $25.47. So it's all in the book. So I'm going to give you a copy of the book, and I'm going to sign it for you. And before we go, so I'm going to. This one has been extremely well received internationally. I believe it will be a 1 million copy seller. Very timely. I wrote it in a way that it involves 10 or 12 other people, and actually the foreword was written to this ADHD Unlocked by a friend that was Dr. Tracy Lotz, who's probably the best known medical doctor and emergency surgeon ADHD. And a number of other ones. And it is written in such a way that somebody that is affected by ADHD or slow learning, and some people that are affected by trauma of some sort tend to sometimes be slow learners or slow readers, that you can open the book anywhere that you wish and start it there and then go back to the other one.
Great.
Alison.
Great. Look forward to it.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah, it was
you.
great talking today.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.